So welcome. So I'm going to big experiment today, this afternoon. I'm going to go be my granddaughter's tutor, her online. Erin needs to do something. Erin said, the constraint of being there because school days are now from like 9 to 3 or 8:30 to 3. And they have little breaks and they're actually well designed. I'm pretty impressed with how they've developed it. But Erin just says, I can't go get groceries. I can't go play tennis. I can't do anything. So I said, I am a certified teacher. It's like I've done this before professionally, not just as a mom. So we'll see how big my mouth is gonna get me, how much trouble it's gonna get me into today. So, take a good seat and take a few nice, deep, full breaths. And allow this time I was reading a really interesting article that Shelley loaned me in Texas Monthly on Brene Brown. And she sort of talks about the sort of micro cuts that this pandemic has done to our psyche, to our sense of social connection and well-being, and that, we three are fortunate that, Allison, your husband's still able to work and he's still healthy, and I'm not worrying about how to make my mortgage. As a semi-retired person, my finances are stable, not luxurious, but stable. And so when I'm feeling like anxious or unsettled or unhappy or frustrated or, the whole basket of stuff, I often stop myself and say, oh, but people have it so much worse. I can't feel that. And the researchers say, and the therapists say, do not discount what you're feeling. So feeling bummed and upset and angry about, hurting and feeling the pain of shingles, or just the frustration of not being able to live your life, to live my life as I'm used to doing. No joy. And Allison, I think of you every single time I come out of a store, ripping the mask off like I did when you rip your bra off, or in the days when we wore pantyhose in the 80s. And in Florida, I would come home and my kids would meet me and say, Mama, can I? And I just say, they still remember, just let me get to my room, take my pantyhose and my clothes off, and then we can discuss it. And so even, the frustration of having to be bound in the store and then come out. But I think we just have to sit with that. So this morning, just allow that to be. Do that scan that we do. That it helps me so much to just scan the physical body and then scan the emotional body. The gross body, the subtle body, or the physical body, the energy body. The body you can touch, and the body, the you that's hard to touch but is so there. And you scan it for what it is. And that being in the present moment's so challenging. Every single day, get up, I don't like this present moment. I want this present moment to be different. Yep. And come back to the breath and settle. And draw your palms together in front of your heart center. Let's do one soft Om. Inhale, exhale, cleansing. Release the hands. Flutter the eyes open. Take your ball and either do it between both hands or roll it out on the floor. And this is where the thin R eminence, it's that little pad. Took me forever to remember that until I got an injury on it. But I was reading about what to do, and one of it is stabilize it and don't use it. Duh. And the other was like massage and acupressure and acupuncture. So just work your hands, wake them up, change it when you're ready. Or sometimes I like to alternate back and forth, a little bit on one hand and then a little bit on the other. Ow. And release. Come to hands and knees. Begin to round and arch. As we do, connect with the whole circumference of the palm and claw the fingers. Oh. Oh. As big as you wish. Explore the movement side to side. And then in child's position with the knees wide, wide, wide apart, toes touching, walk your fingertips, your arms out, come onto the fingertips, lift your palms, lift your wrist. The arms, the hands are also outer shoulder width apart, fairly wide to give you some space, or wider if your shoulders are cranky. But you're up on Spider-Man fingers, ridge tops, palms lifted, wrists lifting, elbows micro bending out to the side and starting to move up to the ceiling. Then counter that with the inner armpits moving up, outer shoulders, outer armpits moving down. Oh, and soften the heart in between there. So it's an active or strength posture rather than a resting child's pose. Then lift the head enough to clear the floor and walk your arms over to the right, sorry. Just about whatever you think halfway might be for you. Plant your right palm on the floor, slide the palm back towards your knee, bend the elbow, so you can use the right hand to press the earth to get the left sits bones back towards the heel as you walk the left arm out even more. I so need these side stretches, my side, all the muscles on the side body, so tight. Oh. And then if you want to walk a little bit more towards the right, you can shift everything a tiny bit more. Still use the right hand to press into the earth so the left sit bone moves back towards the left heel. Inhale your way back to center. Just pause a minute, notice the difference. And perch back up on ridge tops, micro bend your elbows out to the side. As the elbows lift up, that inner rotates the forearm. The upper arms outer rotate by lifting the inner shoulders or the inner armpits, and that takes the elbow points down. So you find that little place in the middle there. And then slowly walk about a few inches over towards the left, slide your left hand back, use it to press into the earth to move the right sowel, sit bone, back towards your heel, walking the right fingertips out and away. Oh. But keep the upliftment in the palm, the elbows slightly moving out and up, the inner armpit moving up and out. Oh. Walk a little more towards the left if you want to, or hold what you got, and then repeat. Press
into the left hand as the right arm is reaching, and fingertips are reaching more towards the left. Right sit bone is moving as close to the heel as it can. And on your next inhale, come back to center. Come back up. Whew. And do a little toe torture before we rub them out. Just notice it's more like a pretest. Just say, really tight, not so tight, moderately tight. See what's going on there. And then come to down dog, walk your dog. And on your next exhale, walk your hands back towards your feet. Do some easy sort of micro bend, micro straighten here at the back of the mat. Kind of encouraging the hamstrings to lighten up. Next inhale, hands on your hips. Come up halfway, soften the knees, shrug the shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones. Inhale, rise up. And release. Work the feet, pressing, pushing, rolling. You know the drill. Finding the spot on each foot, and it can vary, often does, that's the tenderest, that needs the most love and attention. And roll it, rinse it, scribble it. Wake it up. Pause. Just stand a moment. All right, that one's awake. Get the other teenager out of bed. All right, press. You find all the tender spots. Let me count the ways. Scribble it out, work it, and release. Take another toe torture and just see if it's a little more open. While you're there, interlace your hands behind your back. And open. Oh my gosh. I need shoulder work today. And then come back up to to a forward bend. Hands on your hips, come up halfway. Next inhale, hinge from the hips, rise all the way up. Release. Get your strap. Then come up to do morning back bend, pull the lat bar down. So stand well, strong, inner thighs back, tailbone down. Keeping the legs strong, the core of the pelvis, sending the energy down through the four corners of the feet. Then lift up first and curl back. Keep pulling, you're working the arms, resisting, so that helps you lift up and out. And release. Shake off. Take the belt behind you. So we already did the hand clasp, but what the belt does, it gives you a little more space, maybe that are almost touching if you hold them behind the back.
maybe the strap is farther apart, not too far apart, just far enough to give you some space. Again, legs are strong. They hold you as you bow forward. Oh,
Pulling the arms overhead, pulling the strap apart. Next inhale, hinge up and release.
Side stretch. Cannot stretch my sides enough, it seems. Up. Legs are strong. From that strength, rise up. Arms can come forward if they need to. If you end up hunching the shoulders, it's better to pull it down and then hug the shoulder blades on the back. Stretch over to the right, pulling up with the left arm, down with the right, and pressing through both feet evenly, particularly your left foot, the side you're moving away from. Inhale, rise up. Take a breath. Next, exhale over to the left. Press down through the right heel. Pull the strap apart. Breathe the ribs. Inhale, come up. Release. Stretch it out. Put the strap aside for now. We'll come back to it. Go to a wall if you can. Have a side to the wall. So let's start with your left side to the wall. The left foot, you walk as close as you can and see if you can get your hip and maybe the side of your armpit. So if this is way far away, then step away. But if you can get all of the side body and particularly the outer sort of the triceps, it won't go to the wall maybe, but it's close. So the arm is up 12 o'clock. And then press down through both feet evenly. And as you press down, reach the fingertips up. The outside arm can do whatever it wants. Then on the next inhale, take your outside arm, your right arm, and hold your left ribs or whatever side's to the opposite side. And as you breathe here, pulling the ribs away from the wall, towards the center of the room, begin to itsy bitsy spider your arm back about 1 hour. So if this is 12 o'clock, this is 1 o'clock. The tendency is to roll towards the wall. So you're rolling out. And then from the fingertips, pull the energy down into the shoulder socket. Don't pull out of the shoulder socket. Maybe you can walk back a tiny bit more. Oh, maybe not. And notice the more, at least what I'm noticing, the more I walk my arm back, the more I'm rolling my ribs towards the wall. So play that edge there. And find the midline, the middle place where your arm can be back and you can get a big stretch. Oh, and then if you can, lower the arm, make circles. Feel like I jerked it out of the socket to some degree. No. All right, side B, 12 o'clock. If you can get your hip on the wall and the rib cage may or may not get to the wall, but it's moving towards the wall, the arms straight. Now pull down from the fingertips and pull the shoulder blade back onto the back, moving down the back. Another way of saying that is to move the head of the arm bone into the shoulder socket. And then the outside arm takes hold of the opposite ribs, pulling the ribs towards the center, and then walk the arm back to 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock, however you're perceiving the clock. The upper body is yearning away from the wall towards the center of the room. And breathe here. Press through both feet evenly. Stabilize the legs and maybe walk the arm back a tiny more. And breathe. Notice if there's tension in the neck, the jaw, release that. Pull from the fingertips down into the shoulder socket, even as you're reaching the fingertips up. Keep that connection. And release. Shake it off. Oh my gosh. Now interlace the hands. See if you've got with the second favorite finger on top, side hand on top, and go over. See if you have a little more freedom. Inhale, come up halfway. And then the next inhale, come up all the way. Stretch it up. Rise up. Exhale, release. All right. Oh, I love what that does on my shoulders. All right, while we're up here, let's do a bit of a standing pose. A standing balance. You can use the wall as you wish, or be out in the middle, mid with no net. We'll do baby dancer. So I recommend you can either take a strap, lasso the ankle, or the knee up, place the hand, the outside of the knee, the hand down. You have to collapse a little bit, then pull it back under you. The tendency is to wing the knee out, and certainly don't want to force it back to midline, but hug it back to midline as best you can. And then spread the toes and come into a balance. Hugging the inner knees together, then push the foot into the hand, and the hand pulls back as the knee moves back. Stretch the arm up, and here's where the wall is kind of nice because you reach up the wall as you tilt forward. You keep reaching up the wall. And release. Shake off. Side B. Take hold of the outside of the shin or ankle, as the front of the ankle or shin as best you can. Hug to the midline. Even though the knee may be out, don't resist that. Hug back in. Strong through the standing leg. Shoulder blades on the back, bottom ribs moving down and back. Kick the foot back. And rise up. Keep walking the hands up a real or an imaginary wall as the knee moves back and away, still hugging to the midline. And release. Shake off. All right. Take a wide stance. I love having you guys because your bodies are both quite open, and so we'll do some things I don't normally do when I have people with more limitations. As wide as you can dare, lift all 10 toes, connect to the four corners of the feet, particularly the outer edge of the foot we tend to roll in. So work to the outer edge and then hug the heels towards each other. Keeping that, the inner thighs move back and apart. That tends to pull the heels away from each other. So we want both to hug in and to move apart. Then as the tailbone moves down, the toes extend long, hands on your hips, come down, halfway. That hamstring attachment is having some fun this morning. Light on the fingertips. Wow. Using blocks or coming all the way to the floor. And then hands on your hips. Use the legs and hinge from the hips. Turn your left toes out. Back foot is either, the outer edge is either parallel with the short edge of the mat or turn it in slightly to give a little more rotation to the back leg. The block can come down kind of with the knee, hands on the hips. So for Allison, Sherry, you're not as much of a hyperextender, but because you're flexible, you have that issue. But I know Allison tends to be quite flexible, and the tendency is to press into the knee. So push the shin forward. So try this if you've got the block. So I've got you here. Angle it so when you straighten, there's resistance there. It's kind of an interesting way to come into triangle. It reminds you that the shin has to push forward, if you can figure out how to do that. Otherwise, you'll start to feel pain in the inner knee. So just tilt forward. Not so much anything with the arms. Move the head of the armbands back. The heart moves up towards the ceiling. Energetically, not a big twist. Ooh, stabilize. And then to rise up. Change sides. So you have to bend into a bit of a lunge so that when you straighten, you're pushing down into that little edge of the block is at an angle, and it's forcing the shin forward. Hands on the hips. As you scissor the legs in, inner thighs go back. When the tailbone goes down, it's also pushing the legs apart. So you want both. And you tilt. Extend. The ribs are moving up towards the ceiling, heart center moving towards the ceiling as the low belly is moving down towards the floor. Lengthen. Try to lengthen the underside. It wants to collapse, so it's better to stay higher and lengthen. Push, straighten the leg to the degree you can, pushing against the block. Gives you some nice resistance. And inhale, press down to come up. Well, we do a couple little things for the block. All right. Step forward onto your mat. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, bow forward. Stretch the right leg back, straight leg lunge. Now move the block so the edge of it comes just above the kneecap, right where the quadricep moves down, the upper thigh, the front thigh muscle moves down towards the kneecap. It may be quite tender. That's the point, to release that. It's a little trigger point sometimes, but to release the fascia there. So the back leg is resting, the top of the thigh, right where it, just before it goes to the kneecap, is resting, is pushing on the block actually for some pressure. The back foot, toes are tucked, and you just come into this lunge. Arms on the inside of the front foot, left foot. Soften between the shoulder blades. Take a few breaths. Ooh. And walk the hands, and see if you can walk the hands to the top of the front thigh, putting a little more pressure on the block. You're still pressing out through the back foot. So in some ways, you're pressing on a muscle that's engaged, can be fairly intense. Then if the right leg is back, the right hand comes to the floor on a block or on the floor. The left hand pushes in the top of the left thigh, pull the ribs back and do a nice twist here. On your next inhale, untwist and move into downward facing dog. Oh. Notice if there's a difference between the two sides. And then step your right foot forward, straight leg lunge.
the block comes right. Oh. So I'm finding this back edge is kind of digging right into where the knees tend to sag, right above the kneecaps there. Oh, yes. And this one, way more interesting than the other side. So the back leg is still engaged. You're not collapsing it, pressing out through the back foot. Arms on the inside of the front leg. Walk the right leg out to the side a little bit to give yourself room. The inner knee hugs gently into the right arm. Right arm presses away or shoulder presses away. Ooh, this side burns. So this is clearly the side that needs it more. It's kind of like the child who's being the most irritating is the one that needs and usually gets the most attention. Oh my gosh. You can rock gently a little back and forth if that side needs a little more massaging. Then walk the front foot just a little bit in if it got too far out to the side so you're balanced. The hands are not coming into full warrior, partly because I can't, but mostly because this is a very deep low lunge. And keeping it, the shoulders are forward of the hips. Just pressing on the top of on the insertion point of the quadricep. And then with the left hand down, press on the top of your front leg, the right leg, and begin to spin, the ribs moving up towards the ceiling as the low belly's moving back towards the floor. Deep psoas stretch here. Oh. And release. Oh, downward facing dog. There are days when I feel my age way more than other days. Stretch the heels towards the floor. If you can get some stretch on the back of the calves. Release, bend your knees, come all the way to the floor. So the next sequence will do a lot of lying on the back with the strap. You guys have done all of these before. But certainly have some blocks, a block near you, because we'll go into that funny little turn to the side where the foot's on the block. I'll try to guide it verbally as best I can, lie all the way on the back. Ah, this feels good. Knees bent, feet on the floor. Tilt the hips so the sits bones move towards the heels, lifting the low back off the floor. Snuggle the elbows in and lift the shoulder blades a little bit, snuggle them onto the back, and then tack the head of the arm bones back to the floor. Belly button drops towards the spine. And let's start with the left. Draw your left leg in, just to be different and contrary. And with the strap, be careful that this does not undo all the nice work we did on the shoulders in the beginning of the class. So if you're reaching up for the foot and pulling the shoulder blades off the back, you're using rotator cuff muscles. So snuggle the shoulder blades under your back, slide your hands down the strap so the back of your arms are on the floor, the elbows are bent. And just pause here a minute. With the left leg is straight with the strap around the sole of the foot, the right knee is bent, knee pointing up towards the ceiling. Recover your low back curve, by inner rotating the thighs. Tailbone lengthens to engage the core. Keep that. And as you pull the toes towards your head, You'll notice the low back, particularly on the left side, will start to go closer to the floor. Do your best to keep it away, keep the energy of it away. If you want more stretch, the right leg can straighten, but keep it upright. The inner edge of the thigh, of the right thigh, is moving towards the floor. And the outer hip is moving towards the floor. So there's an evenness, it's like you're tacking it down evenly. Kneecap is pointing straight up to the ceiling. And then begin to stretch. And notice, the more you find stretch on the back of the left leg, the more the left side of the waistline wants to smash to the floor. But see if you can keep that up. You have to use more core there. Take both straps in the left hand. Keep the elbow bent so you're using the strength of your upper back rather than your rotator cuff. And then just rotate the leg. In and out in the hip socket. Back and forth. Ooh. Something's going on with the left side today. And the next time it's turned out, begin to move it out. Now, the right leg can stay straight as long as it doesn't wing out to the side. You can also bend the right knee for some stability, but keep the knee pointing to the ceiling. So think about this. If you open the knee out to the side, then you're counterweighting, and actually that helps distribute the weight evenly on the sacrum. However, and I can keep my low back lifted a little bit more easily this way, but I don't have a lot of stability in the core here. So if you pull it in, I can't let the left leg go quite as far out to keep the stability. My core is having to work a little bit more. But take it out as much as you can to the left without collapsing your left side to the floor, left sideways. And then begin to pull the toes towards the left side of your head. And notice that will collapse the side waistline as well. So just work that, keep the core working. And come back to center. Switch hands. Now the right hand pulls both straps. Get your shoulder blades on your back, slide the hand down the strap. With the right knee bent, the foot on the floor, lift your hips a bit and bump them to the left. And first, just inner rotate your left leg and just pull it across the midline. Again, back waist wants to collapse, so sits bones tilt towards the floor, towards your heel, your right heel anyway, that direction. And then the tailbone lengthens to connect xiphoid to tailbone. And just a tiny bit across midline to stretch the outer hip flexors. Then roll, bump all the way to the side, to your right side. And here's where a block or a chair or the side of a wall or a couch, something to support, either press the foot into the wall, the top leg, which is your left leg still, into a wall, or rest it on the block or push on a chair. Having it connect something helps. Hanging in midair is harder, possible, just harder. And you want the leg to be parallel to the floor. Even though it could come down to the floor, that can start to pull the SI joint, the sacroiliac joint. And then bend the right elbow, push into it, lift your shoulder blade, slide the right shoulder blade over to the right so the left shoulder blade can come to the floor. Now it's a deep, deep twist. Hips are stacked right on top of each other, but the upper body is open, the left shoulder blade's on the floor. My hand holding the strap, the right hand holding the straps, really not doing anything right now. It's completely relaxed because your left foot or leg is connecting to something else. In this case, my foot is just pressing down into the block a little bit to keep it there. Roll the outer left hip out. Oh, can even use the left hand to dig into the hip crease and pull it out, pulling the left hip away from the ribs, away from the armpit as best you can. You can hold here, or if you want to go further, the bottom leg, the right leg is bent. You might be able to reach up, take hold of the top of the right foot with the left hand. Oh my word. And then pulling the bottom knee, the right knee back even more. You can forego the grabbing the bottom foot if that's not an option for you today. But this gets everything. It's stretching, just think about it, stretching the left hamstring, the left hip flexor, IT band. Oh, it's stretching the front of the right quadricep. So if you're not holding the right foot, just keep moving the right knee towards the back body, towards the left side. Then you got a nice deep twist, and into that, scoop the tailbone even more to engage the core, and breathe. Oh. Giving this some time to hold it. Takes a while to get into it. I love when I can press the top leg, in this case my left leg, foot into a wall. It feels so good. So when I go to the other side, I think I'll be able to do that. Oh, feels great. So tight. Take a few more breaths here. And get out of it any way you can. Roll back to your back. And pause, stretch both legs out long, both arms out overhead. And notice the difference, just how one hip hits the ground, how it connects compared to the other one. The whole side. And then come back up to side B. Bend both knees, get your low back off the floor. Straps. And come into just regular Padangusthasana. So Supta Padangusthasana in this case. No, Supta Padottanasana. My bad. All right, left knee is bent. So even as you lift the right leg, notice the outer right hip has a tendency to move up towards your ribs, shortening the right side. So move the outer right hip down. That gives you a little more turnout in the right leg, which you want. Inner thighs are still moving, but it's even. The inner thigh is moving towards the back body, towards the bottom of your mat, and the outer hip. So think about moving the hip bone away from the armpit as best you can. The outer right hip bone. And then with one strap in each hand, bend your elbows, lift your shoulder blades so you're not using the rotator cuff, and begin to, with each exhale, pull the foot a little closer to the top of your head. At the same time, the outer right hip is moving away from the rib cage, from the armpit. Oh. Exhale, pull it in a tiny bit. See if you can keep your low back curve. Keep the neck soft, but the neck has its natural arch, natural curve. Stretching the hamstring on the back of the leg without locking the knee. So the leg is straight, but not locked. So still imagine you have the block pressing the back of your calf, pressing the calf energetically forward. And then both straps in your right hand, just inner rotate, outer rotate, inner rotate, outer rotate, just to get freedom in the hip socket. And then with the back in anatomical neutral, which means the sacrum is evenly weighted, the tendency to rock the weight to the right side is strong, so weight both sides. Outer rotate, turn out the leg, begin to let it come out to the side a little bit with the left knee still pointing straight up to the ceiling, and weight the left sacrum back down. You have to use core to pull yourself back here. Use as little of your hand, don't fatigue the hand unnecessarily. If you double wrap it, you can just use a little bit of pressure to help keep the leg up. Then as the leg moves out to where you can stabilize it, then begin to pull the toes towards your right ear, your right shoulder. Stretch the inner thigh muscles, the adductors. And notice I keep rolling more weight to the right side. Pull back with the belly towards the left to weight your left side of your sacrum, your left hip down as well. So it's not as big. This is a much bigger move, but it's very controlled. And come back up to center. Switch both straps in the left hand, the opposite from the lifted leg. Inner rotate and just cross the midline. The left knee can come over, it can cross over as well, like you're trying to cross your legs to give you that more inner rotation. Then counter it with the tailbone, gives you some outer rotation in the hips as the core strengthens the low belly tones. Oh, yeah. All right. So now, as you press into your bent leg, your left leg, bump your hips over to the right, roll all the way to the outside of the left leg. And then now I have the right foot, the straight leg foot on the wall. Very intense, but it's quite nice to push against the wall on both sides. If you bend your left elbow, push into the left elbow so you can snuggle, lift and snuggle your left shoulder blade off to the left, then the right one comes down. So hips are stacked on top of each other. The upper body is open. Oh my gosh. If the foot's on a wall or on a chair, something, or a couch or stable, pushing into the bed, then the left hand really has nothing to do because you don't have to hold it up at all. Just pause here a minute and notice this side. So most of the time I feel this, the outer right, the straight leg, the outer right hip flexors, all the way down the IT band. And then add the double whammy if you wish, holding on or maybe lassoing with the strap. Working the right shoulder blade back to the floor. So the upper body, ribs, and the gaze are moving off to the right, away from the straight leg. And the low belly's moving down towards the left. The outer right hip wants to hike up towards the ribs, moving down. You can even take your left hand and push the top of the right thigh, away from the ribs. Lengthening, breathing deeply. It's the multitasking stretch. It's so many different things. And I thought the other side was tight. And then slowly on your inhale, come back to center. Stretch the legs long, stretch the arms overhead. Can do one more with the strap. This is true Supta Padangusthasana. So lasso both feet. Wide, take a wide stance. Hold on to the bitter end of the strap. Ah, pull, by pulling the strap back towards your rib cage, both hands moving towards your rib cage, you're pulling the baby toe side of the foot back towards your hips, which is what you want. Then step on the gas a little bit with the big toe ball and get a nice stretch in the inner thighs. And as you push the feet apart on the exhale, inner rotate the thighs more and scoop the tailbone. Inhale, just soften a little bit. Don't hold so hard. Exhale, inner thighs move back towards the back body side as the tailbone lengthens and the core strengthens. Push the feet away from each other. You keep kind of pulsing there, holding maybe a tiny bit longer than we normally do. So you get a nice stretch on the inner thighs, if that's possible for you. But we're working eccentrically to support the joints and strengthen the core. And release. Move the strap to the side. Stretch the body long. Take your block. Bend your knees. Lift your hips and slide the block so you can do the low edge of the block, or maybe try medium. That gives you a little more upliftment. And then snuggle the shoulder blades underneath you. You can do robot arms here. The head of the arm bones, the top of the shoulders are moving towards the floor, but the sternum is moving towards the chin, as the chin is playing a little hard to get, moving slightly farther away as the sternum comes closer. So opening the upper body. When the hips are on the block, we don't have to set the legs quite as intensely because they're already supported, but you're still working the legs slightly. They're just a lot less work than if we're doing regular bridge. Then you can keep the arms in robot or reach them underneath you and maybe take hold of the block, or just roll to the outer, so outer rotate the arms so the back of the hands are on the floor, palms up. Maybe the thumbs can reach for the floor. And then hug the forearms towards each other. Maybe they're even hugging the block. Mine don't get that far, but they're hugging towards the block as the thumbs are reaching for the floor. So it's more of an upper back work here than legs when the block is supporting the hips. But you can get deeper into the upper chest and the back. And then on your next inhale, push into your feet to lift your hips. For final relaxation, you can do regular final relaxation or supported fish, another passive chest opener. That's not having to work quite so hard. Oh, this is one of my favorites in the morning. So choose your poison and settle in. And then as you're in final relaxation and everything's settling in, it's always nice to just touch base for a moment before you completely pass out, to consider how
the physical and energetic bodies feel, how they've shifted from the beginning of practice. Begin to deepen your breath. And begin to move and stretch. Gradually bend your knees and roll to your side. And rolling a little bit more towards the floor. Use the strength of your arms and press up to a seated position. Sit well. And take a few moments in this meditation at the end to just observing so much richer and quite different from judging. So judging requires some observation at the beginning, but often if I jump to judging, I stop observing. You just keep observing the body, mind, spirit, gross body, subtle body. noticing the fluctuations. It helps me a lot when I'm feeling down about all the crap in the world that's happening. It's just to remember that, as my sister used to help me by saying, I won't always feel this way. And yoga helps us shift that so quickly. For me, from the beginning of practice, which was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I've been doing that a lot lately. And then going through the practice, letting the body lead the way. And at the end going, oh, I'm so glad I did that. Do feel so much better drawing the palms together in front of the heart center. Namaste. Thank you so much.